The heat in Los Angeles was a living thing, pressing down on everything, shimmering off the endless asphalt. Inside his custom-built Cadillac, a vehicle that usually felt like a palace on wheels, Elvis Presley was sweating, not from the heat, not entirely, but from a frustration that simmered deeper than any California sun. He was stuck. Hopelessly, utterly stuck. The 405 freeway, a concrete river of despair, stretched out before him, and behind him an endless, unmoving, metallic serpent. He glanced at the clock on the dashboard, a tiny red digital reminder of his impending doom. 2 hours. 2 hours he'd been inching along, and he still wasn't even close to his destination. "Colonel's gonna have my hide," Elvis muttered, running a hand through his perfectly coiffed hair. Colonel Tom Parker, his manager, was a stickler for punctuality, especially when it came to a meeting with a major studio executive. This wasn't just any meeting. It was about the soundtrack for his next movie, a big deal, a chance to really push his music in a new direction. And here he was, trapped in a gilded cage. He leaned his head back against the cool leather seat, sighing. The city outside, usually a vibrant hum of opportunity, felt like a giant suffocating blanket horns, blared occasionally a symphony of impatience. Faces in other cars looked just as miserable as he felt. He saw a young woman chewing her lip, a businessman drumming his fingers on his steering wheel, a mother trying to entertain a bored toddler in the back seat. Everyone was in the same boat, a fleet of metal boats going nowhere fast. Elvis loved Los Angeles. Loved the energy, the opportunities, the sheer craziness of it all. But traffic was the great equalizer. The one thing money couldn't buy you out of. Not usually anyway. Closed his eyes for a moment, picturing the studio, the sound booth, the buzz of creativity. He needed to be there. He had to be there. This wasn't just about him. It was about the whole team, the musicians, the producers, all waiting. Just then, a flash of black and white caught his eye in the rearview mirror. A police car. It was pulling onto the shoulder, siren wailing, lights flashing. For a split second, traffic seemed to part like the Red Sea, and the patrol car shot forward, a dark arrow piercing the gridlock. It was gone in a blur of blue and red, leaving behind a wake of envious stares. Elvis watched it disappear, a slow smile spreading across his face. Envy wasn't the right word. Admiration maybe, or more accurately an idea. A wild, crazy, utterly Elvis idea. His mind started racing. If a police car could do that, if it could cut through all this, he had a lot of money. He had influence. He owned a lot of cars. What was one more? And what if that one more could solve his biggest, most frustrating problem in this city? The thought blossomed into a full-blown conviction. It was so outlandish, so outrageous, so perfectly him. No one else would think of it. No one else would dare. He imagined it. Cruising down the freeway, lights flashing, siren blaring, a path clearing before him like magic. He'd never be late again. He could get to his recording sessions on time, make all his appointments, even pop down to Memphis for a quick visit if the mood struck him. The possibilities were endless. A chuckle rumbled in his chest, turning into a full laugh. The other drivers glanced over, wondering what was so funny about sitting in traffic. But Elvis didn't care. He was already planning. Pulled out his phone, a sleek new model, and started scrolling through his contacts. He needed to talk to someone who knew about vehicle auctions, about decommissioned cars, about the rules and regulations. Someone who could make this happen even if it seemed impossible. His thumb hovered over a contact labeled Joe Auto Specialist. Joe was a wizard. With cars could find anything, fix anything. If anyone could navigate the bizarre world of police car acquisition, it would be Joe. He took a deep breath, the smile still fixed on his face. He knew Joe would probably think he'd gone completely mad. Colonel Parker would probably have a coronary. And what was the point of being Elvis Presley if you couldn't once in a while do something absolutely preposterous, just because you could? He pressed the call button. The phone rang once, twice. The distant wail of a siren, much like the one he'd just seen, drifted faintly through his closed car window. A sign perhaps, or just the universe laughing along with him. Either way, Elvis was ready for his next grand adventure. The Los Angeles traffic was about to meet its match, Elvis said, his voice brimming with an excitement that belied the traffic jam around him. Elvis, here, listen. I've got a little project for you, something special. He grinned, already picturing himself behind the wheel. The siren, a symphony of freedom. Tomorrow, the freeways of LA would never be the same, and neither, he suspected, would Elvis Presley. The idea of beating the traffic, of taking control, felt strangely empowering. It wasn't just about speed, it was about proving that even the most famous man in the world still had to face the same mundane frustrations as everyone else, and then finding an entirely unique way to overcome them. It felt good. Really good. Joe Mancini, Elvis's go-to guy for all things automotive, was a man who'd seen it all. From custom paint jobs on pink Cadillacs to finding obscure parts for vintage motorcycles, Joe rarely batted an eye. But when Elvis called him with this request, Joe nearly dropped his wrench. "You want to buy a what, Elvis?" Joe's voice crackled through the phone, a mixture of disbelief and genuine amusement. "A police car? With a siren? You serious?" "Serious as a heart attack, Joe," Elvis replied, lounging on a plush sofa in his Beverly Hills mansion surrounded by guitars and gold records. "I need to get around this city and this traffic. Man, it's a killer. Saw a cop car fly by yesterday, lights and all, made me think." Joe sighed. "Elvis, you know they don't just sell those things at the local car lot. And even if they did, you can't just slap a siren on a civilian vehicle and go speeding around." "It won't be illegal if I buy a decommissioned one, right?" Elvis countered, ever the smooth talker. "One that's no longer in service. Just needs a little TLC, maybe a fresh coat of paint if I feel like it. But the siren, Joe, the siren is key." Joe paused, picturing it. Elvis Presley, king of rock and roll, cruising down Sunset Boulevard in a full-blown police cruiser. The mental image was so absurd, so perfectly Elvis, that Joe couldn't help but crack a smile. "All right, Elvis, you're crazy, but I'll make some calls. There are usually auctions for old city vehicles, patrol cars included, but don't get your hopes up about the siren. Those are usually removed or disabled." "Just do your best," Joe, Elvis said, his voice laced with the charm that could melt steel. "And make it snappy. My patience for traffic is wearing thinner than my stage clothes after a show." A few days later, Joe called back. "Elvis, you're not going to believe this. There's an auction next week. Lapt is selling off a batch of older units. Some are beat up, but there's a couple that are surprising clean, and get this, a working siren." Elvis practically leaped off the sofa. "You're kidding me, which one?" "It's an older Ford Custom, a bit of a classic actually," Joe explained. "High mileage, but well maintained. The department decided it was more trouble than it was worth to remove everything, or maybe they just forgot. It's the only one with everything intact." The day of the auction felt less like a regular sale and more like a covert operation. Elvis, disguised in dark sunglasses and a wide-brimmed hat, arrived with Joe and his head of security, Red West. They blended in as much as a small entourage around the most famous man in the world could. The auction lot was filled with mechanics, used car dealers, and various oddballs looking for a bargain. No one expected to see Elvis Presley bidding on a police car. The car itself was a battleship gray Ford, a relic from a slightly earlier era, but still imposing. It sat there, lights dimmed, sirens silent, looking like a retired war hero. Elvis felt an immediate connection to it. It wasn't flashy like his Cadillacs, but it had a certain no-nonsense authority. When the auctioneer announced lot number 72, the Ford Custom patrol car, Elvis leaned forward, a glint in his eye. Bidding started low, mostly from folks who wanted it for parts, or to turn it into a taxi. But then Elvis, through Joe, started to bid, and he didn't stop. Other bidders raised their eyebrows. Who was this mysterious guy in sunglasses, so determined to get this particular car? The price climbed steadily past, reasonable past sensible, and into the territory of the ridiculously extravagant. $100,000, Joe called out on Elvis's silent signal. A collective gasp went through the crowd. This old Ford wasn't worth a tenth of that. The auctioneer, a seasoned pro, looked directly at Elvis, though he didn't know it was him, and then at the remaining bewildered bidders. Going once, going twice, sold to the gentleman in the hat for $100,000. A small cheer erupted from Elvis's security detail, quickly stifled. Elvis himself pulled off his sunglasses, a triumphant grin spreading across his face. He'd done it. He owned a police car. As they walked over to inspect the car, Joe shook his head. Elvis, you spent a fortune on this thing. A fortune. Worth every penny, Joe Elvis said, patting the hood of his new acquisition. He opened the driver's side door, inhaling the faint, lingering scent of stale coffee and duty. He slid inside, a tight fit for his broad shoulders, but comfortable enough. His fingers brushed the array of buttons on the dashboard. The radio mic, the siren control. It works, Elvis Joe confirmed, a hint of awe in his voice. I checked it while you were signing the paperwork. Lights, siren, everything. It's decommissioned. So technically, it's a private vehicle, but it looks like a patrol car. A very, very ex-pro car, or rather a king with a new crown, one that came with a siren. He pressed a button. A low, throaty growl rumbled from the engine. He touched another, and the light bar above him pulsed to life, a silent disco of blue and red. Then, with a mischievous twinkle in his eye, he reached for the siren switch. Elvis, no, Joe hissed, looking around frantically. Too late. A piercing, ear-splitting wail ripped through the auction lot, echoing off the corrugated iron roof of the building. Heads whipped around, the auctioneer nearly fell off his podium. A few people clutched their chests, startled. Elvis just sat there, basking in the noise, a look of pure, unadulterated joy on his face. This wasn't just a car. It was a promise of open roads, of no more traffic, of freedom. And maybe, just maybe, it was the start of something even bigger than he could imagine. All right, Joe, Elvis said, turning the siren off, the silence suddenly deafening. Let's take this baby for a spin. I've got a meeting I'm already late for. The drive from the auction lot was predictably a sensation. Elvis insisted on driving the police car himself, Joe riding shotgun, looking like a nervous parent. As they pulled onto the main roads of Los Angeles, jaws dropped, heads turned, people pointed. It was a spectacle even in a city used to celebrity antics. Elvis, for his part, was in his element. He wasn't using the siren yet, just enjoying the sheer power of the vehicle, the authoritative presence it commanded. Other drivers, seeing the black and white patrol car, immediately slowed down, changed lanes, and gave them an unnervingly wide berth. It was a bizarre kind of respect, born of caution. And Elvis found it utterly hilarious. This is incredible, Joe, Elvis exclaimed, his voice full of boyish glee. Joe just mumbled something about getting them both arrested. Finally, they hit a particularly nasty stretch of traffic on Santa Monica Boulevard. Cars were bumper to bumper, not moving an inch. Elvis's patience, always thin when it came to delays, evaporated. All right, showtime, he muttered, a mischievous glint in his eye. He reached for the siren switch. Elvis, are you sure about this? Joe asked, his voice barely audible over the sudden piercing wail that filled the car. The effect was instantaneous and dramatic. Drivers ahead, startled, swerved onto shoulders, pulled into empty parking spaces, or simply stopped dead, clearing a path. The flashing blue and red lights painted the surrounding buildings in an urgent, pulsing glow. Elvis, exhilarated, pressed the gas pedal. The police car, surprisingly nimble, despite its age, surged forward. He wove through the now sparse traffic, feeling an unprecedented sense of freedom. He was flying. This was what he had dreamed of. No more endless delays, no more missed appointments. He was invincible. He made it to the studio in record time, pulling up right to the front entrance, lights flashing, siren blaring for a dramatic finish. The security guard nearly fell off his stool. The colonel, standing impatiently outside, turned white as a sheet, thinking it was some kind of police raid. Elvis cut the siren, killed the lights, and stepped out, adjusting his hat with a grin. "Sorry I'm late, Colonel. Traffic was a real bear." Colonel Parker just stared speechless at the police car behind him. His eyes, usually shrewd and calculating, were wide with utter bewilderment. "Elvis, what in tarnation is that?" "My new ride," Elvis said proudly, patting the hood. "Gets me where I need to go, quick." The meeting went well, mostly because Elvis was so energized by his new acquisition, but his joyride wasn't without consequences. Later that afternoon, as Elvis was leaving the studio, he decided to take his new police car for another spin, just for the sheer thrill of it. He was cruising down a quieter residential street, the lights off, the siren silent, enjoying the hum of the engine, when he saw the blue and red lights flash in his rear-view mirror. A real police car. "Oh, bother," Elvis muttered, pulling over. A stern-faced officer, a woman with a no-nonsense expression and a neat blonde ponytail, approached his window. Officer Rebecca Miller, her nom tag, read, "License and registration, please," she said, her voice crisp and authoritative. She peered into the car, her gaze lingering on the dashboard controls, the police band radio, the light bar. Her expression tightened. Elvis, ever charming, gave her his most winning smile. "Well, hello there, officer. Is there a problem?" "Sir, this is a police vehicle, or rather, it appears to be." "Why are you driving it?" "It's mine, ma'am," Elvis explained, handing her his license and the stack of auction papers Joe had given him. "Just bought it at an lapped auction, decommissioned." Officer Miller scrutinized the paperwork, then looked back at Elvis. "You're Elvis Presley." It wasn't a question. "Last time I checked." Elvis chuckled. "So is everything in order, Mr. Presley? Even if this vehicle is legally yours, it is still configured with the lights and siren activated on public roads, especially not to clear traffic for your personal convenience." "But it was an emergency," Elvis protested. "I was late for a very important meeting." Officer Miller raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "Being late for a meeting, Mr. Presley, is not a police emergency. It is a traffic violation. Using emergency equipment to impersonate an officer or to circumvent traffic laws is illegal." "Impersonate? I wasn't impersonating anyone. I'm just Elvis' mate." "Sir, you can be the King of England, but if you're using a police siren to get through traffic, you're breaking the law," she said, her voice firm. "This car is decommissioned. It's no longer a police vehicle. Therefore, you have no authority to operate it as one. At the very least, those lights and siren need to be covered, if not removed entirely." She handed him back his documents, her expression still unyielding. "I'm giving you a warning this time, Mr. Presley. A verbal warning. Next time it will be a citation. And if I see you using that siren again for anything other than a genuine life-threatening emergency, I will have this vehicle impounded. Do I make myself clear?" He'd expected a bit of a laugh, maybe some awe, but not this steely reprimand. Officer Miller was serious. "Crystal officer," he mumbled, a little humbled. "Good. Now, please turn off those lights and don't turn them back on. And I suggest you get that siren disconnected immediately." She gave him one last disapproving look, then turned and walked back to her patrol car as she drove off. Elvis slumped back in his seat. The thrill of the purchase, the joy of the first spin, it all faded a little. He had thought he was being clever, resourceful. But in Officer Miller's eyes, he was just another privileged celebrity breaking the rules. He looked at the siren switch, then at the light bar. His personal traffic be as simple as he'd hoped, but then a thought sparked. What if the car wasn't just about him? What if it could be something more? The idea was vague, unformed, but it flickered there, a tiny light in the aftermath of the stern lecture. He'd just bought a car that commanded respect and attention. Maybe he could use that power for something truly good. The stern lecture from Officer Miller had definitely taken the wind out of Elvis's sails. For a day or two, the police car sat in his garage, silent and unused, a rather expensive reminder of his impetuousness. Joe had called, offering to disconnect the siren and lights as per Officer Miller's instructions, but Elvis had hesitated. He hadn't said yes, and he hadn't said no. He just needed to think. He was sitting by his pool, strumming his guitar half-heartedly, the melodies refusing to come, when his mind drifted back to Officer Miller's words, "Genuine life-threatening emergency." It had stung, implying he was trivializing serious police work. But it also planted a seed. What if he did encounter a real emergency? What if he could actually? A thought gnawed at him. He was Elvis Presley, but sometimes he felt a profound lack of purpose beyond his music and movies. He signed autographs, he performed, he smiled, for the cameras, but what real difference did he make in the everyday lives of people? He got up abruptly, walked to the garage, and stared at the Ford Custom. It looked less like a toy now, and more like a sleeping beast. He decided to take it out again, but this time, with the lights off, the siren silent, just to drive it to feel its power, without the forbidden thrill of the emergency equipment. He drove aimlessly through the quieter streets of Beverly Hills, then drifted into the more bustling areas of West Hollywood. The car, even without its active emergency lights, still turned heads. People recognized it as a former patrol car, and they generally yielded. He wasn't breaking any laws, just experiencing the city from a different perspective. As he turned onto a busy street, a sudden commotion caught his eye. Ahead, near a crosswalk, a small crowd had gathered. He saw a car with a crumpled fender and a woman sitting on the curb, holding her head. This was a real emergency. Someone was hurt, and paramedics needed to get through. Instinct took over. Without a second thought, Elvis flipped the switch for the light bar. Blue and red lights exploded to life, bathing the scene in an urgent glow. Then he hesitated, remembering Officer Miller's warning, but the ambulance siren was growing louder, more desperate. He had to do it. He pressed the siren button. The familiar wail pierced the air, but this time it felt different. It wasn't for his convenience. It was for someone else. Crowd ahead, startled by the sudden appearance of what looked like a patrol car, and a very official-looking one at that, driven by a man who looked suspiciously like Elvis Presley. Immediately started to react. Drivers quickly began pulling to the sides, craning their necks. Elvis slowly edged his police car forward, using its imposing presence and the blaring siren to create a path. Pulled up to the accident, stopped, and quickly got out, leaving the lights flashing. "Everyone clear the way," he shouted, his voice amplified by the car's presence. "There's an ambulance coming. Move your vehicles to the side." He started waving his arms, directing traffic. People, still bewildered, recognized him now. "It's Elvis," someone gasped, but the urgency in his voice, combined with the official-looking vehicle, spurred them into action. Drivers, seeing the now visible ambulance trying to snake its way through, began to cooperate. Within minutes, a narrow lane opened up. Elvis waved the ambulance forward, guiding it through the bottleneck. He watched as the paramedics leaped out, rushing towards the injured woman. He saw the relief on their faces, the speed with which they could now attend to the scene. He stood there for a moment, the siren now silent, the lights still flashing, breathing heavily. He hadn't done anything heroic, not really. He hadn't saved a life directly, but he had helped. He had used the very thing that Officer Miller had warned him about for a genuine good purpose. A few minutes later, Officer Miller herself arrived on the scene, having been dispatched to the original accident. She surveyed the scene, her eyes landing on Elvis, standing next to his police car, surrounded by curious onlookers and smoothly flowing traffic. Her eyebrows shot up. She walked over, her expression a mixture of surprise and something Elvis couldn't quite decipher. "Mr. Presley," she said, her voice still firm but with a hint of curiosity. "What exactly is going on here?" Elvis gestured towards the now attended accident scene and the ambulance. "Traffic was completely jammed, officer. An ambulance was stuck. I just helped clear a path, used the lights and siren for that." Officer Miller looked from Elvis to the ambulance crew, who were now working efficiently. She looked at the clear road, then back at the flashing lights on Elvis's car. "You clear the road for an ambulance?" she asked, a flicker of something that looked almost like approval in her eyes. "Yes, ma'am. Seemed like a genuine emergency to me," Elvis said, giving her a small, sincere smile. She was silent for a moment, then nodded slowly. "It was. Thank you, Mr. Presley. That was helpful. But next time, perhaps, call it in first, so we know what's happening." "Will do, Officer," Elvis promised, feeling a surge of warmth. He hadn't gotten a citation, he hadn't gotten yelled at, he had been thanked by a real comp for doing something with his crazy car that actually mattered. As Officer Miller took charge of the accident scene, directing traffic, and speaking to the drivers, Elvis quietly got back into his car. Turned off the lights. The sudden darkness, a stark contrast to the earlier flashing urgency. He sat there for a moment, the hum of the engine, a comforting presence. This wasn't about beating traffic for his own sake anymore. This was about something bigger. The unexpected detour had shown him a new side to his absurd purchase. It wasn't just a gimmick. It was a tool that in the right hands and for the right reasons could actually do some good. And, for the first time in a long time, Elvis felt a genuine quiet sense of purpose, beyond the roar of the crowd and the flash of the cameras. This was a different kind of buzz, a far more satisfying one. The incident with the ambulance changed everything for Elvis. The thrill of simply using the police car to cut through traffic faded, replaced by a much deeper satisfaction. Officer Miller's grudging thanks had meant more to him than 1,000 screaming fans. He had glimpsed a new purpose, a different kind of impact. He still used the car, but not in the same way. The siren remained silent unless he felt a genuine, undeniable need. The lights were only for serious situations. Mostly, he just drove it, letting its presence command respect. And using that respect, not for his own gain, but for the benefit of others. His schedule, already packed, suddenly had new unofficial additions. He found himself driving routes he'd never taken, exploring neighborhoods he'd only ever seen from a distance, and he started noticing things. One afternoon, he saw an elderly woman struggling with a flat tire on the side of a busy street. Usually someone else would stop or would be called, but Elvis, in his unique vehicle, felt compelled. He pulled over. The woman, a frail lady with kind eyes, looked utterly bewildered to see a police car pull up. Her jaw dropped further when Elvis Presley himself emerged. "Ma'am, looks like you've got a spot of trouble," Elvis said, bending down to examine the tire. "Do you have a spare?" she stammered. "You're Elvis, and you're a policeman," Elvis chuckled. "Something like that? Don't worry, ma'am. I'll have you back on the road in no time." He rolled up his sleeves, retrieved the jack and spare from her trunk, and, with a surprising amount of skill, he'd learned a thing or two from his mechanic, Joe. "Changed the tire," the woman kept repeating. "I can't believe this." Every few minutes. When he was done, she tried to offer him money. "No, ma'am," Elvis said gently. "Just glad I could help you drive safe now." Word started to spread. The Elvis cop car. At first it was whispered rumors. "Did you hear? Elvis Presley bought a police car." Some dismissed it as a publicity stunt, another celebrity eccentricity. But then stories started to filter out. My cousin was stuck in traffic, and Elvis, in his cop car, cleared a path for her to get to the hospital. Her kid was sick. He stopped and helped a bunch of kids find their lost dog. I saw him helping a tourist who looked totally lost get directions to the Hollywood sign. These weren't grand gestures, but small, everyday acts of kindness. And they were starting to change the perception of Elvis's unusual hobby. He wasn't just using the car to be flashy. He was using it to be genuinely helpful. One morning, driving past a local elementary school during rush hour, he noticed a chaotic scene. Kids were trying to cross the street, but parents were rushing, and traffic was gridlocked around the crossing guard. It was an accident waiting to happen. Elvis instinctively pulled over, lights flashing. No siren, just a gentle pulse of blue and red, and stepped out. Presence of the police car immediately brought some order. Drivers slowed. He walked into the intersection, waving children across, stopping cars with a firm but friendly hand. Crossing guard. A grizzled old man named Frank looked at Elvis with a mixture of confusion and gratitude. "Well, I'll be Elvis Presley directing traffic. Never thought I'd see the day." "Just trying to help out, Frank," Elvis replied, giving him a wink. "Kids gotta get to school safe." For the next 15 minutes, Elvis acted as an impromptu traffic controller, his presence adding an unexpected layer of celebrity, but also efficiency, to the morning chaos. Parents, initially stunned, started to smile and wave their thanks. The kids thought it was the coolest thing ever. This wasn't his usual life. This wasn't standing on a stage, bathed in spotlights, performing for thousands. This was standing on a dusty street corner, directing traffic for a few dozen kids and their parents. But it felt real, more real than a lot of the glitz and glamour. He started stopping at a small diner near the studio for coffee, a place he'd never noticed before. The owner, a bustling woman named Martha, was initially starstruck, but since she treated him like any other regular, albeit one who drove a police car, he'd sit at the counter, listen to the chatter, the everyday worries and joys of people. He heard about local sports teams, school plays, problems with landlord. These were the stories of real life. A world away from the carefully calculated bubble of his fame. He realized something profound. The police car, initially bought to separate him from the common struggle of traffic, was actually connecting him. It was breaking down the invisible wall that often surrounded celebrities, allowing him to interact with people in a way he hadn't done in years. They didn't see Elvis the King. They saw Elvis the helpful guy in the cop car. And that he found was a surprisingly comforting and fulfilling identity. He still had his demanding schedule, his music, his movies. But now, nestled within it was this new, unexpected calling. He was using his unique status and his unique vehicle, not to escape the world, but to immerse himself in it, one small, kind act at a time. And as he drove home that evening, the silent police car felt less like an impulsive purchase, and more like a tool of genuine, quiet purpose. Elvis's police car, once a symbol of impulsive celebrity, extravagance, was slowly but surely becoming a fixture in certain parts of Los Angeles. People started recognizing the specific Ford Custom, even without the lights and siren. They knew it meant Elvis was somewhere nearby, probably doing something unexpectedly kind, and his interactions with the locals started to deepen. Officer Rebecca Miller, the one who'd given him the stern warning, found herself running into the Elvis car more often than she'd ever anticipated. She'd be on patrol, and there he'd be, helping a stranded motorist, directing confused tourists, or even just parked outside Martha's diner, chatting with regulars. Each time she'd feel a grudging admiration mixed with her initial skepticism. He really was doing good. One afternoon, she pulled up alongside him while he was helping a group of teenagers change a flat tire. He was greasy, laughing, and giving instructions like a seasoned pro. "Everything all right here, Mr. Presley?" she asked, rolling down her window. Elvis looked up, wiping grease from his brow with a rag. "Just fine, officer, just fine. These young folks are learning some valuable life skills." The teenagers, initially nervous at the sight of a real cop, relaxed when they saw Officer Miller's more amused than angry expression. "You know," Officer Miller said, "a slight dispatcher got a call the other day. Someone reported a mysterious police car with an unusually polite officer helping a cat out of a tree." Elvis feigned innocence. "Couldn't be me, officer. I'm afraid of heights." He winked. She just shook her head, a genuine laugh escaping her. "Keep up the good work, Mr. Presley. Just try to avoid any actual arrests, all right? That's still our job." "Understood, ma'am," Elvis said, saluting her with his greasy hand. Their relationship had clearly thawed. She still held him to the law, but she now acknowledged his positive impact. His morning stops at Martha's diner became a cherished ritual. Martha, a woman in her late 50s, with a booming laugh and a heart of gold, always had a fresh cup of coffee waiting for him. Morning, Elvis, she'd say, placing the steaming mug in front of him. Heard you helped Mrs. Henderson find her lost poodle yesterday. She's still talking about it. Just doing my civic duty, Martha, Elvis would reply, taking a sip. He loved the simple honesty of the place. No paparazzi, no demanding executives, just real people with real lives. He'd listen as Martha bantered with her regulars, an elderly couple who'd been married for 60 years, a young aspiring actress who worked part-time, a retired fireman who told tall tales. He learned their names, their stories. He offered small kindnesses, picking up someone's tab when they were having a tough week, giving a struggling artist a generous tip, or just lending an ear. One day, a young boy named Leo, maybe 7 years old, walked into the diner, his face streaked with tears. His mother was trying to comfort him. "What's wrong, little fella?" Elvis asked. His voice gentle. "I lost my favorite toy. It's a little green army man. My dad gave it to me before he deployed." Elvis felt a pang in his chest. "A little green army man, huh? Tell you what, I know a guy who's pretty good at finding things. You ever seen a police car?" Leo's eyes widened. "Like yours, like mine?" "Exactly like mine," Elvis said, standing up. He spent the next hour with Leo, driving slowly around the neighborhood, scanning sidewalks and bushes. He talked to other kids playing outside, asking if they'd seen a green army man. He even got out and searched under a few park benches. It was completely absurd. The king of rock and roll on a search and rescue mission for a toy soldier, but it was also incredibly important to Leo. Finally, tucked under a rose bush in front of Leo's house, Elvis spotted it, the tiny green figure, half hidden by leaves. "Look, Leo," Elvis exclaimed, picking it up and handing it to the boy. Leo's face lit up, a brilliant smile spreading through his tears. He hugged the toy soldier tightly. "You've found him. You're the best, Elvis." That moment, the genuine, unadulterated joy on Leo's face was more rewarding than any sold-out concert. It was a tangible difference he had made, a small ripple in the vast ocean of human experience. His manager, Colonel Parker, was still largely in the dark about the extent of Elvis's community service. He only knew that Elvis sometimes disappeared for hours in the police car, and always came back strangely invigorated. He tried to get Elvis to sell the car, fearing bad press or legal issues, but Elvis was uncharacteristically stubborn. "Colonel, this car, it's good for me." Elvis had explained, a rare seriousness in his tone. "It keeps me grounded, keeps me connected. You don't gotta worry about it. I'm not doing anything to hurt my image. In fact, I think it's helping it." The colonel, ever pragmatic, had just grumbled about unauthorized publicity stunts. But he knew better than to push Elvis too hard when his mind was made up. Elvis was still the king, still recording, still filming. Now, in the quiet moments between takes, or early in the mornings before the demands of fame took over, he found solace in his new routine. The police car had opened a door, not just to clear roads, but to clear a path to a more meaningful existence. He was becoming a regular in his own city, and that, surprisingly, felt like the greatest privilege of all. The bond between Elvis and his police car had grown stronger, with each passing week solidifying its place not as a novelty, but as a tool for genuine good. He had developed a network of informal contacts. Martha at the diner, Frank, the crossing guard, even Officer Miller, who now greeted him with a nod of respect rather than suspicion. This informal network would prove crucial one sweltering afternoon. Elvis was driving home from a recording session, windows down, the Los Angeles heat, pressing. He wasn't in a hurry, just enjoying the hum of the old Ford, listening to a blues station on the radio. As he neared a bustling shopping district, he noticed something was wrong. Traffic was not just jammed. It was gridlocked in a way that felt different, more chaotic. People were out of their cars, looking towards the sky. Then he saw it. A plume of thick black smoke rising from the direction of a large apartment complex a few blocks away. A fire. A serious one. His heart immediately lurched. He knew that area. Families live there. His mind flashed back to Officer Miller's words. Genuine, life-threatening emergency. This was it. He flicked on the lights. Blue and red pulsed urgently. Then, without hesitation, he hit the siren. It wailed a sound that usually announced his frivolous joys, but now carried the weight of true urgency. He pushed the car forward, inch by agonizing inch through the panicked traffic. Other drivers, seeing the lights and hearing the siren, began to clear a path, albeit slowly and reluctantly. His unique vehicle, known now to many as the Elvis car, drew attention, which in this case was exactly what he needed. He could hear the distant wail of real sirens, fire trucks, ambulances, police cars, trying to get through the same mess he was in. He knew they were coming from all directions, but they were all facing the same impenetrable wall of traffic. As he got closer, the smoke grew thicker, the air crackled with heat. People were pouring out of the apartment complex, some coughing, some carrying small children, their faces etched with fear. He saw a few police officers already on the scene trying to manage the crowds and direct traffic. But they were overwhelmed. Then he saw her, Officer Miller. She was trying to wave through a massive fire truck, but a line of stalled cars was blocking its path. She looked exhausted, frustrated. Elvis drove his police car right up behind the fire truck, its siren still blaring. He jumped out, leaving the doors open, lights still flashing. "Officer Miller!" he shouted over the din. She spun around, startled. Then her eyes widened when she saw him. "Elvis, what are you?" "Traffic's completely blocked on the next two streets," Elvis cut in, pointing. "Fire trucks and ambulances can't get through, but I've been clearing a path from the other side. This truck can't go forward, but if you send it around, I can clear a side street for it." "All right, Elvis," she yelled. "Captain!" She signaled to the fire truck's driver. "Take the next left." "Elvis will clear the way," the fire captain, bewildered but desperate, nodded. Elvis ran back to his car, jumped in, and peeled around the corner onto the side street. He laid on the siren, pushing through the remaining cars that had spilled over from the main road. He didn't just honk. He physically got out, waved, and directed, using his fame to make people listen and move. "Move it! Move it! Fire truck coming through!" he yelled, his voice rough. Incredibly, people responded. They saw the cop car. They recognized Elvis, and they saw the desperation. In his eyes, cars scraped against curbs. Drivers swore, but they moved. He drove the police car quickly back to the main intersection, just as the fire truck lumbered around the corner, its own powerful siren now cutting through the noise. Elvis drove his Ford directly ahead of it, guiding it like a shepherd dog, leading it through the now opened path. The fire truck roared past its crew, waving their thanks. Then came the ambulances, one after another, their paramedics looking relieved to finally get through. Elvis stayed directing the remaining traffic, working alongside the real officers and firefighters, doing whatever he could. He helped an old man find his family, carried a frightened child to safety, and even helped load supplies onto a stretcher. He was just another person, albeit a famous one. In the thick of a real emergency, he wasn't singing, he wasn't performing. He was simply helping. Hours later, as the fire was mostly contained and the chaos began to subside, Elvis leaned against his police car, exhausted but exhilarated. Officer Miller approached him, her face smudged with soot, but her eyes shining with something close to awe. "Mr. Presley," she said, her voice soft, "you were incredible out there. You saved us critical minutes. You cleared paths we couldn't have. You really helped." Elvis just nodded, too tired to speak much. "Just glad I could be of some use, officer." She reached out and clapped him on the shoulder, a gesture of genuine camaraderie. "You more than pulled your weight today. You showed me that a good heart in a police car can be just as effective as a badge." He managed a tired smile. He looked at his Ford no longer. Just a gimmick or a personal convenience. Today it had been a vital part of a genuine emergency response. It had helped save lives. And in that moment, Under the smoky orange glow of the setting sun, Elvis knew he had found a purpose far grander than any chart-topping hit. The news of Elvis Presley's involvement in the apartment fire spread like wildfire. It wasn't long before the story of Elvis the cop car king helping to clear the way for emergency vehicles during a major blaze hit every newspaper and television station in Los Angeles, and quickly across the nation. Initial reactions were, as expected, a mixed bag. Some scoffed, dismissing it as another publicity stunt from the eccentric superstar. "Elvis just wants more attention," sniffed one tabloid headline. "Plays hero in borrowed uniform," declared another. There were whispers from some police officials about the dangers of untrained civilians interfering in emergencies, but then the eyewitness accounts started pouring in. Firefighters, grateful for the crucial minutes saved, spoke openly about how Elvis's police car had miraculously cleared paths they couldn't penetrate. Paramedics lauded his help in directing traffic and assisting victims. And most powerfully, the residents of the apartment complex, many of whom had lost everything, came forward to thank him directly. He was just like one of the real officers, one tearful woman recounted on local news. He was calm. He was directing people. He even helped me find my cat. "I saw him with my own eyes," a man insisted, moving cars with his bare hands, yelling instructions. He wasn't playing. He was helping. The most significant endorsement came from Officer Rebecca Miller. At a press conference held a few days after the fire, she stood alongside her captain and, unprompted, spoke about Elvis. "Mr. Presley's actions that day were instrumental," she stated, her voice clear and firm. "His vehicle, with its unique appearance, was able to cut through the initial gridlock and create vital lanes for our emergency services. He then remained unseen, assisting in crowd control and victim aid. Worse," her words, coming from a real police officer, shifted the narrative dramatically. It was no longer about a celebrity stunt. It was about a human being with a unique resource, stepping up when it mattered most. Colonel Tom Parker, initially horrified by the uncontrolled public relations nightmare, and secretively a little proud, tried to spin it. "My boy, Elvis always had a heart of gold, just demonstrating his deep commitment to public safety." Elvis, however, refused to play along with the manufactured narrative. "I just did what anyone would do," Elvis said in a rare, brief public statement. "Saw folks in trouble, had a way to help. That's all there is to it." He looked tired, but resolute. The public, seeing his sincerity and hearing the genuine praise from first remembreds, began to embrace Elvis, the helpful cop. His record sales even saw a small bump, but it was the public perception of him that truly changed. He was still the king, but now he was also seen as approachable, empathetic, and grounded. For Elvis himself, the aftermath was a period of intense reflection. He realized the incredible power of his fame when wielded not for personal gain, but for the common good. The police car, once a symbol of his desire for speed and convenience, was now a powerful emblem of connection and service. He started getting letters. Not just fan mail, but letters from ordinary people in distress. A plea for help with a neighborhood dispute, a request for assistance with a charity drive, even just stories of daily struggles. He couldn't help everyone, but he realized he could do more. He had a long conversation with Joe, his mechanic. "Joe," Elvis said, "I'm keeping the car and I'm keeping the lights and siren, but they're not for me anymore. They're for when someone truly needs help." Joe, who had witnessed the transformation in Elvis, simply nodded. "Understood, boss. What do you need me to do?" "Just keep it running, Joe," Elvis replied, a thoughtful look on his face. "Keep it ready. And maybe we can put a sign on the side, something that makes it clear it's not a real police car, but that it's here to help." They eventually settled on discreet, tasteful lettering on the side doors. "Community Assistance Vehicle. operated by EP. It was subtle, yet clear. It was Elvis's way of saying, "I'm not a cop, but I'm here for you." The incident at the fire had been a trial by fire in more ways than one. It had tested his resolve, shown him the real impact of his actions, and solidified his newfound purpose. He had found a way to use his immense privilege not to escape the world, but to engage with it, to protect it, and to serve it. The old Ford Custom, with its siren and lights, had indeed brought him faster through the traffic, not just of Los Angeles, but of his own life, leading him to a path of unexpected fulfillment. The fire incident cemented Elvis's new role in the community. He was still Elvis Presley, the music icon. But now he was also Elvis, the helpful guy with the cop car. He began to integrate his community assistance efforts more formally into his life, finding a balance between his demanding career and his growing desire to connect with everyday people. He rarely used the siren for personal use now, reserving it strictly for genuine emergencies or when guiding official vehicles. The lights, however, became a softer beacon of presence. He'd park his Ford at local events, a school fair, a charity bake sale, a community cleanup day, turning the flashing blue and red into a symbol of support rather than urgency. His presence at these events drew crowds, of course, but it was a different kind of crowd. Not just fans wanting autographs, but people eager to share stories, ask for advice, or simply say thank you for his quiet contributions. He'd spend hours talking to kids, signing autographs for seniors, and genuinely listening to the concerns of neighborhood residents. One of his favorite stops became the local youth center, a somewhat rundown building that struggled for funding. Elvis started visiting regularly, sometimes just to hang out, shoot some pool with the kids, or listen to their stories. One day he brought his police car. "Hey, Elvis," a young girl named Maria asked, looking up at him with wide, curious eyes. "Why do you have a police car?" Elvis knelt down to her level. "Well, Mariah, sometimes the city can be pretty big and confusing, and sometimes people need a little help getting around or find her." He saw the needs of the youth center firsthand. Outdated equipment, peeling paint, a desperate need for more recreational space. He decided to do something about it. He used his fame and the unusual appeal of his police car to organize a massive community fundraiser. He didn't just donate money. He rallied his friends, his colleagues, even his sometimes grudging manager, Colonel Parker, to support the cause. He hosted an open house with the Elvis Police Car event, where people could come see the famous vehicle, meet Elvis, and donate to the youth center. He enlisted Martha from the diner to provide refreshments, and Frank the crossing guard to help with security. Officer Miller surprisingly attended, mingling with the crowd and even stopping to chat with Elvis, a quiet acknowledgement of his positive impact. The event was a phenomenal success. People lined up for blocks. The sight of Elvis in a police car, not for a movie role but for genuine charity, captured the public imagination. Donations poured in. He even convinced a few of his celebrity friends to make surprise appearances, further boosting the funds. The youth center was completely transformed. New paint, new equipment, and a renovated recreation area were just the beginning. Elvis had helped create a safe, vibrant space for the kids, a place where they could feel valued and supported. His own sense of fulfillment deepened with every act. He still loved his music, loved performing, but the superficiality of fame was sometimes draining. These community efforts, however, felt truly meaningful. He wasn't just performing for an audience. He was becoming an active participant in the lives of his neighbors. He started visiting hospitals, not just for official appearances, but sometimes unannounced, driving his police car to brighten the day of sick children. He'd show them the lights, let them push the siren, briefly and quietly, of course, and tell them stories. Brought smiles and laughter to places often filled with pain. One little boy, confined to a hospital bed, looked at Elvis's car outside his window, its lights silently flashing. "You're a hero, Elvis," he whispered. Elvis felt a lump in his throat. "No, son," he said softly. "The real heroes are the doctors and nurses here. I just drive the car." But he knew it was more than just the car. It was the intention behind it. It was the willingness to step out of his carefully constructed celebrity bubble and engage with the world on its own terms. Police car, once a symbol of his impatience, had become a conduit for his immense capacity for generosity and kindness. It had opened his eyes to the everyday struggles of ordinary people, and it had allowed him to use his unique position to alleviate some of those struggles. He wasn't just the king of rock and roll. He was becoming the heart of his community. One thoughtful, APO act at a time. And in doing so, he was finding a kind of happiness that fame alone could never provide. Years passed. The Ford Custom, Elvis's famous police car, became an iconic part of his personal legend, as well known as his pink Cadillac. It was meticulously maintained by Joe Mancini, who often joked that it was the only car Elvis ever owned that he actually used to help people rather than just drive them wild. Elvis continued his community work, blending it with his career. The siren, once a symbol of his impulsive desire to conquer traffic, had truly become a signal of aid and compassion. He still used it for genuine emergencies, clearing the way for ambulances or fire trucks, but mostly it stayed silent, a powerful reminder of his commitment to the people around him. He learned that true fulfillment wasn't just about the roar of the crowd or the flash of the cameras, but the quiet gratitude of a person he'd helped to smile on a child's face. Or the nod of respect from Officer Miller. He had built genuine connections, not just with fans, but with friends in the community. Martha, Frank, Leo, and so many others. The car itself was a conversation starter, an icebreaker. It allowed him to step outside the persona of Elvis Presley superstar and just be Elvis, the man who cared. It allowed people to approach him not just as an idol, but as a friendly neighbor. There came a time, as Elvis grew older, when he couldn't drive the car as often. His schedule remained demanding, and his health at times required more care. He knew the Ford Custom deserved to continue its legacy of service. One afternoon, he had a special gathering at his mansion. Martha, Frank, Leo, now a strapping teenager, Officer Miller, who had risen through the ranks, and a few others from the community, and a somewhat bewildered Colonel Parker. "Friends," Elvis said, his voice a little softer now, but still warm. "This car, this old Ford, has been more than just a vehicle to me. It's been a lesson, a bridge, a way to connect with all of you, with this city, in a way I never thought possible." He looked at the polished black and white Ford, standing proudly in his driveway, its lights reflecting the California sun. "It started as a crazy idea to beat traffic, but it ended up leading me to a path that's given me more joy and purpose than I could ever have imagined." He paused, then continued. "I want this car to keep doing good. I want it to keep serving this community, so I'm donating it." A murmur went through the small crowd. "I'm donating it to the city of Los Angeles," Elvis explained, "to be used as a special community outreach vehicle. No arrests, no chasing speeders," he added with a wink towards Officer Miller, "but for community events, for helping people, for being a symbol that even in a big, busy city, we can all look out for each other." Officer Miller stepped forward, a genuine smile on her face. "Mr. Presley, on behalf of the lab in the city of Los Angeles, we are honored to accept this generous gift. This car has truly become a symbol of compassion and community. It will serve as a reminder of the good that can happen when people connect." The Elvis Presley Community Assistance Vehicle, as it was officially named, continued its work for years. It appeared at parades, at school events, at charity drives, often driven by specially trained community relations officers who shared Elvis's spirit of service. It became a beloved icon, a tangible reminder of the King's unexpected, heartwarming legacy beyond music. Years later, long after Elvis had left the building for the final time, the car was preserved, sometimes displayed in museums, sometimes brought out for special occasions. Didn't just tell the story of a famous singer. It told the story of a man who, despite his immense fame, found a deeper connection to humanity by simply choosing to help. The siren, once a blaring symbol of impatient power, now resonated with a different kind of sound. It hummed with the quiet warmth of countless acts of kindness, the genuine laughter of children, the relief of those in need, and the profound, unexpected joy of a man who found his truest purpose not in escaping the world, but in embracing it one selfless act at a time. The legacy of the siren, Elvis's siren, echoed through the streets of Los Angeles, a silent, heartwarming melody of connection and care.